They have no idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from. And this is the best of the best. Wow. That is football.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Chop Shop. This is Jeff DiMatteo and Ronnie Evans with Gridiron Ratings, as always. And today we have a special guest on the show with us. It's Jon Macri from PFF. You can catch him with some of their great off-season dynasty, like big rankings articles. John's always in there cranking away the content. He's super nice, sweet, just a wonderful guy, according to his mom and everyone else that loves him. From what I've seen on Twitter, seems like that's true. It's great to have you on finally, John. I know we've talked about this for a little while, but how are things? How are things going? Getting prepped for the season? How are things at PFF, and how are things with you?
Good. Yeah, I'm doing good. I thank you guys for having me on, and I'm glad we worked out a time that worked for all of us. I know my schedule is not always the easiest to work around, so I appreciate you guys being patient and making this work, because I've been looking forward to it, and everything's good. Everything, I can't complain. Everything's good at PFF. The off season is nice, and just enjoying dynasty season, rookie season, and
the best.
Yeah.
How many drafts are you in right now?
Right now, I'm in 2 startups, and I think I have another one starting, but I've already gone through like 3 or 4 this offseason, and I don't know how many rookie drafts. I think I lost count after like 10 or so. So it's degenerate season too, right? So
it is. I'm in here with like 4, and I'm like, that's enough for me.
It's a lot. It is a lot for sure.
Well, so we've got some good news, some bad news. A lot of things are happening with beat writers, and we talked about it a little bit last week, which was some beat reporter news. But I saw, Jeff, you're grinning out of your mind. I was just rambling because I was looking at you, and I couldn't figure out why you were smiling so much. What's up with you?
Oh, well, I'm just hearing you talk about beat reporters and camp reports, and if there's one thing that makes me nuts, it's camp reporters that are actually keeping stats. This guy was 8 for 11 in the 3rd session today. Stop it. Doesn't matter. It's one of those things that makes my brain just twitch every single time I read it.
Paris Campbell's going to be the wide receiver 1 in Indy. Here's the thing, though. I do think there's something to that, and like let's use that as the example. So Paris Campbell has apparently throughout the year so far, when the team has been organized and getting together, has been like Matt Ryan's guy, right? For whatever reason. That doesn't mean that Paris Campbell's going to come in and be the dude. But if you had Paris Campbell kind of on the brink of irrelevancy, this gives me reason at least to be like, all right, well, I'll keep paying attention to him.
It's year 3 in a row of this kind of talk.
What do you think, John?
I mean, I'm one of the people that keeps buying into Paris Campbell for like a late dart throw, so I'm all for it. Yeah. I mean, I know it's Michael Pittman's season over there, so it's there's Alec Pierce. Yeah, there's some good guys there. So I mean, maybe there's a role for Paris Campbell. Maybe they scheme something up.
My favorite Colts product, the kind of out of nowhere guy, which Paris Campbell would be kind of out of nowhere, but he's a name. But Zach Pascal, right? For that short stretch for like 3 years, there was like 2 or 3 instances where 4 or 5 games he was a beast. Every time I was like, I love this man. Yeah, I love it. But anyway, so IDP, John, if you guys didn't know, he's on Twitter at PFF_Macri. John and Nathan and a couple of the other guys are kind of, you guys all combine your personal takes for a cumulative score, it seems like, over there. How does it actually work? Like, where does your analysis slot into what people see when they pay for a prescription?
Yeah, so I personally, like, what I contribute to our like fantasy side of the website is IDP. That's what they brought me in for, and that's what I've kind of been doing the last I guess 3 years now. I did team up with Nathan Yonke last month, I think it was, and we did like a combined offense and IDP. So he handled all the offensive rankings, and then I handled just the defense stuff. And then we kind of worked together to where we would kind of place them within like if we were doing a startup draft. So
yeah,
it's tricky. It's a tricky process for sure to kind of try to figure that out. And there's definitely ranks in there that not everybody's going to agree with, but
that's the fun thing.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but that's what we're doing today. We've got about 8 players here. We've been talking on the show for the last month or two now.
Yeah.
What about these projections, Jeff? Jeff, where are the projections? How are the projections going? Jeff, are you done with the projections?
They've been done for a couple weeks, man.
They've been done. They've been done for a while. I was not even paying attention because I didn't believe them, apparently, the last time you told me. But so Jeff's got these projections. Now, to be fair, they're 2022 projections, right? They don't have anything to do with 2024, for example. So when you evaluate IDP, typically the thought process is to say, all right, what is the peak value for this player over the next 3 years? And then are they going to fall or continue to ascend after that point? And at least that's how I evaluate things. So for his projections, we had to do a little ad-libbing there, but we did get Jon, and we can put Jon on the spot. I'm not going to put your projections and rankings on the screen, Jon, but we have them. We have a couple people, and with your permission, I'd like to at least share like where these guys are ranked or where you have them with these 8 players, and then we can talk about who is higher between you and Jeff and why you guys are there.
Celebrity deathmatch style.
Yeah, pretty much. You guys are gonna get in here, and the loser is going to. We'll talk about it at the end of the show, but it's pretty serious. All right, so we'll start with Aidan Hutchinson. I'm going to pull him up here real quick on PFF on my other computer. But Jeff, you love Aidan. You're a little higher than Jon on him. Jon, in his dynasty rankings, has him as the 18th overall player. He's an edge guy with PFF system. 22 years old. Probably should have been the first overall pick this year, in my opinion. But run through Aidan real quick while I pull this up on my end.
This is a guy where when I broke him down, going through all this Ohio State footage, all I could see was he's basically a Nick Bosa clone. This is a guy with a super high motor. He's got incredible tenacity, converts speed to power regularly, has a nearly complete repertoire of pass rush moves where he can take you inside, outside. He can get you with a bull rush. He can stack moves to catch offensive linemen off balance. He's probably one of the purest, most polished pass rushers we've seen come in since Nick Bosa. Now, granted, it's only been a few years, but he's incredible. He's not the raw athlete Chase Young, was when he came in, but I feel like a more polished rusher. He can come in. Doesn't matter if he's in an odd or an even front. He can take on those NFL level blocks. And he's going to be a difference maker immediately. I'm putting him in for double-digit sacks this year. I've got him as a top 5 edge player for dynasty purposes, simply because I see the upside. And now you have to kind of lean on your own scoring a little bit. If your scoring is sack heavy, you should definitely over-index Hutchinson. If you're a little more tackle heavy and you don't award as much for sacks, you might need to bring him down a touch, because I think he's going to be, I don't want to say specialized, but he's going to be put in a position to pin his ears back more often than not at the next level.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, in PFF, you guys got him. Y'all's blurb on his page says the highest graded edge defender in college football. Jeff, I think we got a little echo coming in from your mic.
You got an echo off me? I'm sorry. How's that?
Blah, 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 blah.
Can you hear me now? Blah, 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 blah.
Blah.
All
right, better.
Okay.
Nah, it's still an echo.
I don't know, man.
Why don't you have your headphones on, you son of a bitch? Every time. Every time.
Is that better?
Let's see.
Are you happy now?
Oh, that's so much better, man.
I got no echo either.
It's perfect.
Well, I'm sorry for any echo that there was, everybody. I apologize.
We're 6 for 6 now on the pro
I apologize to everybody on this earth that's listening to this, except for Ronnie.
I'm cutting all of this out.
Nothing but my echo forever for the rest of the time.
Yeah. So we got PFF's grade for Aidan their blurb for Aidan, excuse me. The highest graded edge defender in college football. Hutchinson has multiple ways to win with his blend of quicks and power. He's a complete edge defender who excels against both the run and the pass. But yeah, John. So Jeff's actually higher than you on Aidan Hutchinson.
Yeah. So I mean, I still have him as a top 10 edge defender for Dynasty. Obviously at edge 10 exactly. So it is on the lower range there. But I'm 100% with you. Like his
I mean, he's a rookie.
dominance. Yeah, that's kind of what it is, right? It's basically the only thing keeping me from moving him up right now, like higher on that list, is just being a little bit cautious of like defensive linemen typically taking more than one season to kind of hit their stride in the NFL and get that production that we need to justify like kind of ranking them a little bit higher. But that being said, like Jeff laid out, like I think that if there's anybody that's going to do it, it's somebody that's been as dominant as Aidan Hutchinson has, and I think if he comes into the NFL and hits the ground running, it wouldn't be a surprise, and I could easily see myself moving him up that those dynasty ranks with inside the top 5, like you said, Jeff. But yeah, the grades and everything just showed how dominant he was last year. 94.5 overall, which was first among all FBS edge defenders. 93.3 pass rush grade, which was tied for first among FBS edge defenders, and a 90.8 run defense grade, which I think is key as well to show like he's dominant against the run. He's going to get those tackles as well for IDP purposes, which you love to see. So a guy that can play all 3 downs and just never leave the field. So I see the argument 100% for him being inside the top 5. You'll notice, I think, with a lot of the rookies that I'm lower on, is there's this baked in kind of bust insurance. Not that I think Aidan Hutchinson is going to bust. I'll let that just to oversimplify it, but it's just being a little bit more cautious until I see it on an NFL field kind of thing. But Hutchinson is probably the one I'm the most confident in being a success in the NFL for sure.
Well, his percentiles are through the roof on y'all's grading system. And when we were going through our pre-draft guide and everything a month or so ago before the NFL draft, same thing. Nothing's really changed with Aidan. Everyone knows it. Everyone likes him. Everybody's saying it. They're all saying it. We all know it. You know it. I know it.
Here's the question.
Aidan Hutchinson.
So the only thing on Hutchinson, this is what I want to know is, are we going to be seeing him in more odd man fronts? Like, are we going to see more of that base 3-4 where he's going to be standing on first down? Because we know they're going to be running, nickel. The question becomes, obviously in nickel, he's going to be hand in the dirt, right? He'll be right there. But if they go into quote base, even though base isn't really base anymore, is that going to be a 3-man front where he's going to be a stand-up edge as the 4th guy? Or are we going to see him pushed inside in favor of a guy like a Derek Barnes being out on like the weak side over his shoulder?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, they have some. They don't have good linebackers. I'll say that. Like, right. I think their linebackers are all really bad. Like Alex Anzalone probably projects to be the starter there and see the most snaps. And then Derek Barnes, who was one of the worst linebackers in the league last year. Right. I mean, Sean Dion Hamilton, I think they brought back. Like Jared Davis, they brought back as well. So this is a first round bust that they're going to take another shot on. So linebacker wise, I think they're going to try to keep as many of them off the field as possible. And they actually loaded up on defensive line talent. I kind of like their defensive line for what it is right now. They have 2 really nice defensive tackles in Levi Onwuzurike and Ali McNeil. So those 2 guys, I think, play on the inside. Then you get a guy like Romeo Okwara or Charles Harris or Julian Okwara. There's Josh Pascal, who they drafted in the 2nd round this year out of Kentucky. They have these guys that they could rotate and play either outside the tackle or, like you said, kind of inside the tackle, especially Hutchinson. And I think Pascal has that ability on passing downs to kind of kick inside a little bit. And yeah, like you said, maybe there are some stand-up guys that come in and rush the passer on those odd fronts. But yeah, I don't know. It's the Lions are always a weird team. They're tough to predict, but I see what you mean for sure.
Well, I think that regardless, though, should be happy if you've got him in Dynasty. He projects really highly. There's a handful of guys in this class that are slam dunks, it feels like, and Hutch is one of those guys. Let's move on to the next guy, and that is Danielle Hunter. He's 27, edge from Minnesota. John, you got him as the 8th overall player in Dynasty IDP.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. This is what do the footballers call it? The fantasy court. I got my gavel out.
Nice.
Defend yourself.
Yeah, so he's my edge 7. I think the only I'm pretty defensive line heavy to start my defense, my dynasty ranks. If you notice that, I typically wait on linebacker. The way I view it is any kind of league format where our team building and roster management doesn't end after the draft. So basically anything but best ball. I'm waiting on linebacker because I know we can replace them in season pretty easily. The Cam Grugier Hills of the world, Eric Wilsons and Donald Paynes and all those kinds of guys. They're readily available week in and week out that we could kind of bring them in and they could be every down players where defensive line is less replaceable. So that pushes a lot of my defensive line guys up the board. And Danielle Hunter is definitely one of them. So I know he missed a big chunk of last season, basically played the only 6 games, and then obviously had the neck surgery before that. But for me, the 4 seasons of him as a starter, so 2016 to 2019, he's arguably been the most productive edge rusher over that span. He had 48.5 sacks.
Oh!
Which
how dare you besmirch Jadeveon Clowney's name like that?
Jadeveon Clowney. I mean,
I'm messing with you.
I know.
We're all dying on the inside. Thanks, Ronnie.
Yeah.
Way to break this man's concentration.
You were on a roll. I had to ruin it.
No, it's all right. I get it. 48.5 sacks, second most among edge defenders, and then 236 total tackles as well, which was the most among all edge defenders, right? So he's one of those guys that we like for IDP that can do everything. Coming off that missed year with the neck surgery, it didn't really seem to slow him down. He's still ranked second in the NFL in total tackles among edge defenders through those first 6 weeks of the season. And then he tied for 4th in total pressures during that time as well, and was averaging a sack a week with 6 sacks through 6 weeks, right? So still just going to be 27 years old. I think that's kind of important for him when the season starts, that is. And if the neck injury is fine, which it does seem to be right now, I'm not too worried about what that pec injury does. One of those kind of freak injuries that, is not something that's going to hamper him too much, I wouldn't think, this season. So he also gets Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith.
Yeah, Zadarius Smith's there. Yeah, you got it right.
Yeah, that's right. Zadarius Smith went back there. So he actually gets another good edge opposite him as well, which could kind of help, create some cleanup opportunities for him and things like that, which he hasn't really had. He's had Everson Griffin, and that was about the best of it that he's had there in Minnesota. So, I'm still high on Danielle Hunter just for how productive I know he can be when he's on the field. Obviously, the biggest question is health.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, Danielle Hunter, there's no doubting the talent or the ability. And I'm glad you touched on last year. He missed the bulk of last season. He missed 10 games or 11 games rather, missed all of 2020. So you're talking about over the last 2 seasons, missing, 27 games or so. That's a pretty big deal. And you're talking about the pec injury, then the neck injury. You start stacking up upper body injuries for an edge or a defensive lineman. That's pretty rough. It's kind of like lower body injuries for a running back. You don't want to see a running back with a knee and then an ankle. And, these things start to stack up, and he's 27. Now, still very much in his prime. Nothing wrong with that. But he's certainly in a position where when you consider the injuries, you consider the age, and you're saying, where is this guy going to be in 3 years? I don't know if I trust him to play a full season. There's a lot of other guys I think I'd rather have, over Hunter. But man, if he gives you a full 17, there's no reason why I can't hand you 12 to 13 sacks pretty easily.
Yeah. Well, I just would like to add that, with the pec and then the neck, if he hurt his back on a deck, you might want to check your rankings on him because he might be a wreck. And I think
it sounds like a song by Jeff Beck.
Well done.
Yeah, I mean, it's Danielle Hunter. I think that he's incredible. He has trouble staying healthy, and that's unfortunately been the case with a lot of these really elite defensive line players.
Yeah, I agree. And just one more thing on Danielle Hunter, before that neck surgery year, I don't think he missed really any. Maybe he missed a game in the 4 or 5 years.
Incredibly robust. He was always on the field. The neck injury is really what did it. And there were questions about whether he'd even make it back.
Right.
So it's definitely, he's an interesting player for sure. But I'm definitely more bearish on him simply because I don't like stacked up upper body injuries for a position that requires a lot of upper body work and strength. Because I don't know how they impact each other. I'm not a I'm not a doctor, right? That's not. I just know I don't like seeing that many games missed due to the same general area of the body here.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
All right, so let's move on to Foyesade Oluokun. He is now in Jacksonville along with Chad Muma, everyone's favorite pre-draft linebacker, and Devin Lloyd, everyone's favorite post-draft linebacker. And I think that there's a lot of people that are afraid of Oluokun's situation. They look at like Trent Baalke, you son of a gun, continuing to mystify us with your schemes, enigmatic plans.
He can't be fired and removed from the NFL quickly enough.
Well, so I think like Christian Kirk, there is an undervalue that is going on based on the team he's on, how much he was paid, kind of the memes, the running narrative with him. And I'm not saying
Oluokun's going to make $19.5 million next year and the year after. Not this year. He's going to get like $5 million this year.
He also has an out in like the end of 2023, something like that.
Exactly.
So he's gone. It's going to be Devin Lloyd. There at
Muma.
That point, Chad Muma might actually take over the green dot spot. I think Chad Muma is like one of the sneaky stashes in all of Dynasty. Like he came out of nowhere for a lot of people last year, and he's created two situations that are tricky. One of them is Atlanta, where everyone's like, "Well, what do we do about Deion Jones and all of these injuries?" And also,
Sean
like
Evans.
The guy next to Deion Jones has always been really good. Look at Oluokun. It's all everyone's really confused. And then you also have Jacksonville, where everyone's like, Trent Baalke, what are you doing? You got three people playing the same position now. We're all very confused. And I think it's probably going to be a little bit of Muma and nickel and sub packages, and then Lloyd and Oluokun playing all the time.
Take a deep breath. It's John's turn.
Yeah, I'll stop rambling.
No, it's good.
The good news is we can cut whatever we want to out of this. But I love Oluokun. He helped me win the championship last year in a league over Jeff. So.
Nice. Oh, wow. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, everything you said, like, I agree. I mean, this admittedly, I think is going to be one of the tougher ones for me to defend, because I've typically been the person who's been much lower on Foye than that, like after last season, just judging by like seeing other people's ranks and where he's going in drafts. So like I have him outside the top 12, just outside the top 12 linebackers. He's LB 13 for me. So, but yeah, he just hasn't been a good NFL player, right? He's struggled. His grades have steadily decreased every year that he's been in the league, most recently posting a 47.0 overall grade. So there's definitely an argument for dynasty purposes to have him even lower. Sorry. Yeah, that's what he is, right? He's a counting stats guy. And I think that there's still people that will believe he's good because of that, right? So there's definitely an argument for him to be even lower, because especially with the Jags, like you said, drafting two very good linebackers, Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma, in the first 2 days of the draft as well. So
but just like, why would you do that?
It's a waste.
Pay Oluokun.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a valuable
and don't
position,
forget the guy
right?
they took at number one. Who'd they take at number one? They're
Trayvon
talking about
Walker,
they're talking about putting him at outside backer. They're gonna have him standing up off the edge with. You still got Josh Allen over there too.
Like it's one thing if you pay a receiver in free agency and then you draft two in the first 2 days of the draft. Receiver is a much more valuable position than linebacker, right? Linebacker is a fairly replaceable position. It's hard to find very good ones, but for the most part, there's a large crop of linebackers that can do the exact same thing. So that it is a weird decision-making process by Jacksonville to take two linebackers while also paying Foye that money. So, and basically the money is what keeps him in the conversation for me as one of those top options to draft in even dynasty leagues, is that big contract. It's now a top 10 most valuable contract for his position. So there's going to be a lot of that kind of sunken cost reasons to get him on the field a lot. And like you said, there's not really an out in his contract until the end of 2023. So they really don't have much of a choice but to play him until then. And since we know he can be a productive IDP when he's on the field, odds are like people that play IDP, they're going to be taking him even higher than where I have him ranked. And that's why I've drafted 0 Foye this year, is because I've been just lower on him than everybody. And I'm glad somebody else is lower on him than me in Jeff, because I'm really not like a big fan of him, but he's productive for IDP. So that keeps him in there. But yeah, I'd love to hear Jeff kind of put another nail in his coffin there.
Well, I've got a whole box of nails here. So here's the deal. I mean, this guy, converted safety, right? He played safety in college. He still isn't a very good cover guy. This is a defense where when I look at it just kind of on paper, the immediate thought is Trayvon Walker's got to step down and be one of those 3 down linemen. He has to be. He's too big. He's too strong. They don't have enough depth there. They've got to be there. Oluokun, Devin Lloyd are probably going to line up in the middle. And that would give you the ability to put Josh Allen on one edge and then rotate on the other side. Maybe Lloyd kicks out on passing downs. Maybe Muma steps in rotationally. Maybe Foye comes off the field in certain situations. There's no reason not to expect some kind of ridiculous level of rotation here, just purely based on the depth they offer. Foye could even be a guy where they decide to run like a ridiculous kind of pseudo nickel package where they try to use Foye as a third safety. And if that becomes the case and they move him out of that, out of the triangle, so to speak, out of the center of the defense, I don't know how productive he's going to continue to be. I've actually dinked him in my projections based on, a change in his snap counts. And a lot of this is kind of subjective, right? I'm kind of just trying to eyeball this and figure it out. He's not going to be in a position like he was in Atlanta where he's always in the center of the action, right? So him be getting moved out, seeing lower tackle volume, he's not going to be pushing almost 200 tackles again like he did last year. We have like 170 something tackles, some absurd number. He won't be there again. And I think we only need to come to terms with that. I've actually have him as my linebacker 29 this year. Okay. So I'm real low on him. And he's just not going to give you enough of those other stats like the interceptions and the forced fumbles and the fumbles recovered and all that other stuff. If he doesn't get you 170 tackles, he's not a top flight IDP player. And this defense doesn't project as a unit that understands its own identity. So it's going to be hard for me to get behind this player to expect him to know what his identity is going to be within that mold. So I'm out. I'm willing to draft Chad Muma. That's a player I was very high on pre-draft. I think I was the only person on the planet that gave him a less athletic Luke Kuechly kind of a vibe. Every time I watched him, I felt like I was seeing Luke Kuechly at Boston College, but not quite as quick, not quite as fast, but super instinctual, super reliable tackler, very smart football player. Was able to get his hips around in coverage. I thought he was fluid enough, a little bulked up because he came down from being a strong safety. Also another guy that can cover and tackle. Really love him. I think he's going to force his way onto the field. Devin Lloyd, we know what Devin Lloyd is. He's very, very good. I'm struggling with Oluokun. Punt him all the way down. I'm going to stay away from him this year. And given the out in his contract, this guy is not a $19.5 million linebacker. He's going to be out of Jacksonville after 2023, and he'll be at that point going into his, age 29 season? No, thank you.
Yeah, he's a dynasty sell for me. I mean, he might be great this year.
Yeah.
He might be a top 5 linebacker this year.
Could be, yeah.
Am
I willing to take the risk on the rotation?
You're at the end of the 3-year window for him right now if you want to do the running back parallel for linebackers, right? Which isn't always applicable, but for this situation it is. Let's move on to Nakobe Dean. All right. So this is the Gridiron Ratings family of shows. The Getting Defensive crew, even the Rider Dynasty guys who do mostly offense. Some of them do IDP as well. I know JJ Winter loves Nakobe Dean. Like we all, John, love Nakobe Dean. And we all would take Nakobe Dean over Devin Lloyd straight up if we had to pick one for our team and we were a GM in the NFL. But something freaked people out. He spooked the NFL and he fell. Like we had him and Aidan Hutchinson. If it wasn't for positional discrepancy, him and Hutchinson would be ranked about the same for us.
I mean, that could be right on for dynasty purposes, right? We're trying to stick with dynasty, not just this year. I get it. The shoulder injury spooked a lot of folks, but here's the thing. If you go back and you watch UGA's defense last year, and even a little bit the year before, this is the best player on the field every single down. I went through the painstaking exercise of tracking down Derek Brooks footage from 1994 on YouTube. And because I had to figure out where I've seen this player before, and I couldn't find him. And finally I said, height, weight, speed, skill set. I said, this guy's Derek Brooks. Let me go make sure I'm right. I went back and I tracked down as much Derek Brooks as I could find. And on one screen, I've got Derek Brooks going in 1994. On the other screen, I've got Nakobe Dean going. I said, these are the same player. If that shoulder's healthy and this guy's ready to go, I'm not passing on a guy that could potentially have a Hall of Fame level comp in his profile. I just can't do it. This is a guy where if you're in a rookie draft, he should be considered a very high pick. If you're in, blended leagues, I'd be willing to go second round on him potentially. Too many wide receivers to put him in the first, but give me a second rounder on him. And I think he and Devin Lloyd should be going pretty similarly. Aidan Hutchinson, Kyle Hamilton should all be in that same kind of window, but this guy is going to be too good, He fits the current NFL mold way too well. You're talking about a guy who can cover down the field. He can cover the flats. He can fill all the run gaps. There's very little this guy can't do. I'm not worried about his lack of size. Today's NFL linebacker isn't 250 pounds. Today's linebacker is 225 pounds, and they run like the wind. This guy does it.
Let me just add one thing, and then I'll give PFF's little blurb on him and let you run on Dean here, John. But
yeah, why do you hate him, John?
I know that Dean, I know that it's lazy, right? But Georgia, a lot of people would agree. Georgia, best defense of all time in college football that we've seen before. Who's the best player on that team or on that defense? Don't give me Jordan Davis. He's the most physically imposing person on that defense.
But at 30 snaps a game, he can't be the best.
It's Dean, right?
Yeah.
It's Nakobe Dean. So whatever. Give me the best player on the best college defense of all time that had like 11 projected NFL starters. So go ahead, pull the trigger on him. And I don't think you're low on him. We're not saying that, but you're lower than us, you son of a gun.
Yeah. Whenever you're lower on
speak
somebody,
with your mind, and you better put something good out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever you're lower on somebody in the fantasy world, you obviously hate them, right? So that's but no, I do. I love
Stop hating him so much.
Yeah, what gives?
He's LB 20 for me, right? So and as far as rookie linebackers go, I didn't have him ahead of Devin Lloyd before the draft or after the draft. I do like Devin Lloyd for IDP purposes a little bit more. But I mean, like Nakobe Dean, like you said, you laid it all out, right? The only thing basically is that the kind of question marks around his health and what his role might look like within the Eagles defense, at least to start his career, right? Like I think eventually, if he's healthy, there's no doubt he's going to be a 3-down player there. He fits that role perfectly. He could kind of do everything on the field. So I'm a big believer in the talent of Nakobe Dean, and as long as those injury concerns check out, which they have so far, right? They're so far, like the Eagles have put him on the field during camp and have said that there's been no problem. So, I mean, I could keep pushing him up as we get closer to the season with news like that. So, it's just being maybe a little too cautious on a guy that, you know, he ultimately fell to the 3rd round. So the draft capital isn't as, sexy as like a Quay Walker, for example, who I definitely still like Dean more than Quay Walker, even with the draft capital. But
we agree with you.
Yeah, a lot of people love Walker. They think, he's going to overtake Devondre Campbell right away or something like that. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen.
They're going to play next to each other.
Yeah,
they're just going to do something they weren't able to do last year because their depth behind Campbell was so terrible, and that is play 2 linebackers.
It was bad.
It's going to be great. I bet their defensive coordinator is so excited.
Yeah. So, yeah, I am a little bit lower on him, like you said, at LB 20, but
disgraceful, man.
As long as that health stuff like continues to check out, and I would be he would probably be the player that I'd buy into camp hype the most about, where if you're seeing things and he looks healthy on the field and there's still no talk about any kind of surgery or holding him back or anything like that, he's going to be vaulting up my rankings pretty quickly. I think he can overtake a Kaiser White pretty easily. I think they're looking at similar players there. Maybe TJ Edwards ends up being the one that holds a job with Nakobe Dean coming in.
Here's a fun comparison. You remember we were some running backs that came out in the same class as Nick Chubb. Name 2.
Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Sony Michel.
Yeah,
I was going to say, this is a trick question. Rashad Penny.
Was McCaffrey in that class?
No, McCaffrey's in the Corey Davis class.
That's right. So it's funny because they're both Georgia players, but I feel like Nakobe Dean is like the Saquon profile of this class, but he's getting the Nick Chubb treatment. And because he's clearly one of the top 3 linebackers in this class, but people are all over the place with him. But I will say this: draft sharks. I don't stand for draft sharks or anything. They're fine, but their projections right now, which fuel the projections on MFL, have Nakobe Dean scoring 21 points in week 1. And for reference, Blake Martinez and other guys that are in that top 10 range are like projected for 13. So I don't know what's going on here, but Nakobe Dean apparently is going to be a god. And
here's the thing: Nakobe Dean, and I'll just plant this out there for everybody, anybody who's listening and is trying to figure this out. He'll be the weak side backer for the Eagles. That's going to be the case. He just pencil him into that spot. He's there. And then, when they go into sub or nickel, I hate calling it sub now because they run it just as much as anything else. But love Dean there. He's going to be a 3-down player, if not this year, definitely next year and the year after. I don't project him for more than 10 games this year because I was anticipating shoulder surgery. So I had him missing 7 games, which made him linebacker 90 on 10 games.
Okay.
But if I extrapolate him to 17 games, he shot up into the top 36. So that gives you a sense of it. And then just eyeballing it, looking at the landscape, I'm thinking, okay, that still makes him probably top 12 to 14 next year and probably top 5 or 6 the year after. And that's how I view Nakobe Dean. He's a guy where you're going to buy him now. He'll be productive when he's on the field. But if the shoulder ends up needing work, he's probably going to need a few games off. So have a contingency plan for this season.
He's got a little, it's not a direct comparison at all, but he's got a little bit of that JOK feel to me, where you're like, that this guy, if he hits, he's going to hit so hard. But you also know that he's not going to come in and just light the league on fire, most likely in the first year. And you know that there's a little bit of an injury thing going on with him that you shouldn't really be concerned with, but it's there. And it's making you a little hesitant. So I think 5'11", 230, you guys, last thing I'll say, and we'll move on, but PFF.com, this little indie website that not a lot of people have heard of. They say down here, Dean may not be everyone's cup of tea from a size perspective, but there's a lot of tape that suggests he can overcome that in the NFL.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right.
Go team Nakobe Dean.
Yeah. I'm with you. I love Dean. And I want to see him play right away because I need to see him play right away.
Apparently you hate him. So
that's true.
Stop hating him so much.
Oh, man.
Speaking of people that you really don't like, Jaquan Brisker over here. You're gonna get like a message from PFF's PR person. It's like, why am I getting emails from Jaquan Brisker's agent that you guys are hating on him?
Yeah.
Jaquan Brisker, you have as the 105th overall player. I get it. He's a defensive back. I'll be the first person to tell you. I love Kyle Hamilton with all my heart.
Yeah.
In the end, he's still a safety, and that's fine. I'm going to take a lot of other people that are like 10th, 12th, 13th best guy at their position over someone like Kyle Hamilton just because of his position. So I get that. But Jaquan Brisker, we've talked about him a lot here on the Chop Shop. I think he has a chance, a real chance, to score roughly the same as Kyle Hamilton this season. I also think that he is going to come in and he's going to play all the freaking time on that defense because someone's going to make plays other than Roquan Smith. And it's not going to be Eddie Jackson. And Eddie Jackson,
Nicholas Morrow, bro. Nicholas Morrow.
Morrow will be there. Someone had a nice blurb about it. I remember reading a month or so ago that was like, Jaquan Brisker is going to be playing in the box because Jackson's not. And I was like, no, makes sense. Yeah. So that's my hard-hitting analysis. I like him. You've got him as the 105th overall guy. Jeff, where would you rank him if you were going to move him up?
I mean, so I was looking at him positionally. I think you had him. He was like the 18th DB or something like that. I was putting him closer to between 12 and 14. I wanted him in that window because he'll be in the box. So I gave a lot of players nicknames as I went through the evaluation process. And I was calling this guy the thin red line because he was the thin red line between, first downs and turnovers frequently for Penn State. This is a guy that made plays after play out on third down, whether it was a clutch tackle, getting a guy out of bounds, knocking down a pass, getting an interception, constantly making a play. And it always seemed to be in a moment when they really badly needed it. And that's exactly what this defense needs. That, like to Ronnie's point, you've got Roquan Smith. Somebody else has to be able to make a play. And having Brisker on the back half there, I don't care if he's in the box or if he's playing deep or if they got to man him up on somebody in the slot. He can do a little bit of all of it. He's a very reliable tackler. I don't know if I'd go as far as say he's like a tenacious, Derwin James type, but this is a guy that can step up in the box and put a pop on somebody, and he's not afraid to get his nose dirty, and I love it. Really nice player. I just love the athleticism. I love the attitude and mentality. This is a guy that's going to step on the field and be respected by his peers, and I don't think he's going to leave the field for about a decade.
Yeah, it's a good point, right? That's the thing. There's nobody else in the Chicago secondary that's going to take him off the field. I don't think either, right? So yeah, I have him at safety 18, and I know, like, again, this is one of those rookie things that I've kind of baked into the rankings a little bit, where I discount them just a bit, just for that bust insurance. But
We call that hedging.
You're right. Yeah, a little bit of hedging. Yeah, for sure. uh, but I like his chances of being a very good IDP option. I think he'll more than likely be the safety that rotates down and plays closer to the line of scrimmage, with Eddie Jackson playing deep under Matt Eberflus, who comes in and he'll play similar to how Kyrie Willis was playing in Indianapolis, right? And Willis, when he was on the field, was a productive IDP. Now, the thing I think that's going to likely separate him from being like a good IDP or a great IDP, aside from health, is just kind of how efficient he is with his opportunities. And I think you nailed it, Jeff, saying how much of a playmaker he is. And I think that's a big part of it. But I think just being, like I said, making the most of those opportunities. So not missing tackles. He did have like a 13.5% missed tackle rate last year at Penn State, and then just making sure that he's above average in overall tackle efficiency as well. He hovered around like 8% last year. The NFL average is closer to like 9%. So you want him to obviously be able to come like a couple points above average as a tackler. So that's kind of the difference for me. He's still in that safety 2 range, just on the lower end, and none of it means that he can't get there in the NFL, because I'm with you. I think he is an exciting player, and especially with where he's going to line up in that defense, he's going to have plenty of opportunities to put up productive tackles and fantasy points every single week. So.
Well, that's the thing that I love about him. I love about Dean. I love about a lot of rookies. There's a huge contingency of the IDP community that is just kind of like that play redrafts and are just kind of like, whatever, IDP rookies, I'll get them off waivers if they're good. And I think that that's fine. But if you're going to at least do that, then add a watch list of those rookies to pay attention to if you're going to do it. But if you're like me, I'm going to load the back end of my bench up with those guys ahead of time. And I'm going to go get Jaquan Brisker at the end of a rookie draft. And I'm going to go get Nakobe Dean. And for example, in this one league, I had Kyle Duggar and I had Kyrie Willis. Willis is gone now. He's going to go be a preacher or whatever. So now I'm looking at it like, well, who else do I have? Oh, I got Jaquan Brisker. All right, it's a dynasty league. I'll be fine. That's a bummer, though. But Brisker is now, like, I am heavily invested in one league with him because of that. But yeah, I love him. I think that he's fine, and he's a guy that could give you, like you said, DB2 production as a rookie, and that's typically someone you can find late in drafts if you're playing redraft leagues. Anything else on him before we move on to someone a little bit older?
A little bit older.
A little bit older. Yeah, I think we're good. I love some Brisker.
All right, so Bobby Wagner over here, he's at least 25. I know that.
He's damn near 35. He's getting real close. He's closer to 35 than 25.
35, 50, 100. It's all at least 25. And that's where Bobby Wagner's sitting. And we know that he still, to this day, has the arms that are like, if you take the average American male's legs and put his arms next to him, you'd be like, oh, that guy's got big arms. They're bigger than the average leg.
His arms are like the size of my torso. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he's a beast. All right, I'll just draw the line there with Bobby Wagner. I love him. I've been watching him play for 10 years. And John, you're higher on him than Jeff. You've got him as the 28th guy. And I think that really is probably just going to be an age thing. If you're doing redraft, Bobby's probably in top 9 at worst for you linebacker wise this year. But John, why you got him at 28?
Well, at least I don't hate future Hall of Famer Bobby Wagner. Right?
Yeah, how come?
Yeah, so
how come you love him? How come you love him, John?
I don't know why anybody would love Bobby Wagner.
Do you mean it?
Yeah. So I'm all in on Bobby Wagner, even for Dynasty. I mean, he's a guy that, like, I have him as LB10, but he's a guy that falls past that all the time, and I scoop him up very happily. I definitely bumped him up a bit after the Rams gave him that 5-year contract. I think that shows a lot of confidence in what they expect from him going forward, at least 2 to 3 years more production from Bobby Wagner. Definitely getting older. Like we talked about it before, he's going to be 32 by the start of the season. So, but there just aren't many more linebackers that I would consider as reliable as Bobby Wagner, especially since he's entered the NFL. He's never posted below 100 total tackles since 2012, which is pretty ridiculous. Even as old as he is, the guy rarely misses time. I know he missed a game, whatever it was, week 17 last year. He played one snap and then missed the game and cost me a championship, but I'm not bitter about that. I'm not gonna hold it against him. No.
But championship.
Hey man, I'll give you this. I'll give you this. I've owned him for the last 5 years in this one league, and he has been frustrating the last couple of years. He's had duds just randomly. Same with Aaron Donald. They're both like, their peaks are so high.
Yeah.
But then they also have like real floors. Their floors are 0. And it happens 2 or 3 times a year with both those players. But with Wagner, he tended, though, I felt like with him, it happened less than Donald. And even his like bad weeks, you knew they were going to be like 10 to 12 points. He's always there getting those tackles. He's always getting that gritty, dirty, like lunch pail guy, Bucky Brooks style work. You know what I mean? Like he's out there doing the work, and that's why he's a Hall of Famer. I love him. What did I say at the beginning of the show? 3-year window, and then what's their trajectory at the end of that? Bobby's trajectory is not playing anymore.
Right. Yeah,
at the end of that window,
he's getting Thanos in 3 years.
So if you got him, like pair him up with Ernest Jones, and then ride that wave. If what Bobby says is true, which Bobby comes from the Pete Carroll school of talk nice about everybody, but he had a lot of great things to say about Ernest, and I think that's worth noting and worth paying attention to. Let's move on to, unless you have anything else to say, Jeff.
I mean, I think Bobby Wagner, depending on how you value him, it depends on your build, right? So if you're doing a startup right now, Ronnie, obviously you and I are doing a startup league. I've only drafted one player over the age of 26. I'm just not investing in players like that because I want to go ahead and build a core.
You got to move that number down now. How old is Kirby Willis? 25?
He's 26.
Is he? Oh.
He's 26.
The model. Always correct. Continue.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Anyhow, you sit here and you look at, how you want to build your roster, right? If Wagner's in free fall and you've got a great looking core and you want to invest in an older player, that's cool. But if I get the opportunity, I'd rather stack up with a bunch of younger guys where I'm like, I might be willing to dart throw a younger player as opposed to grabbing Bobby. Like if I really need the floor, I'll take Bobby, but it's hard for me to get into a 32, 33-year-old player.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I often like the way I view like my dynasty ranks is that kind of 3-year, because so much changes from year to year. But the one of the few things that stays the same is Bobby Wagner being like an LB1 almost every season, right? So that's where I kind of want him. Like I always look at him as kind of this anchor player that you could trust and start every single week. And you just got to be able to ignore the age with them. That tender age of 32 is it can be tough, but I get it. I definitely get it. I try to draft as many younger players as I can, but want to try to build a competitive roster right away. For me, Bobby Wagner is just one of the best to be able to do that.
I think the other question becomes how many guys after the age of 32 have continued to be really productive?
Yeah, not many, right? I mean,
right.
Not on defense anyways. We could, Tom Brady's older than 42, but he's that's in the quarterback position.
You're not allowed to touch a quarterback anymore. So I think they've been aging up a little bit, but I just look at Wagner. I'm thinking to myself, has he been super reliable? Absolutely. Yeah. Who's a guy that's played until 33, 34, 35? And the only name that's actually coming into my brain is Derek Brooks. And in his age 35 season, he only had 76 or so tackles. Mm-hmm. So, but he's still at 100 tackles plus at 32, 33, 34. So is the window there? Is it possible? Yeah, it's absolutely possible. But for my taste, I'm going lower. I just want a younger player. I'm being an ageist. Sorry, Bobby. Love everything you've done. I'm being an ageist. Get me a younger guy.
Fair enough.
I love Isaiah Simmons. John, I want to hear where you are with him and Zaven Collins. Which guy, if somebody was like, yo, John, tell me right now which guy is going to be better over the next 3 years.
So I'm going Zaven Collins. I'm Simmons is actually the one player on this list who I can actually see myself moving down even further than where I have him right now at LB21.
I had to get up and fill up a glass of water, and I come
just
back
so you can
and it's spicy in here, man. It's spicy.
Yeah, it just blew my glasses across the room. They just blew right off my face. They're gone.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what
Watch
happened.
this just like everyone else should do, and you should go smash that subscribe button.
So here's the thing with Simmons, right? Like even this week, there were reports of that the Cardinals were going to try playing him at safety, which is not something that's a good sign for a player that you want as an IDP linebacker, right? When they're trying to use him at different positions to see if he pans out over there, because he really hasn't been great as a linebacker in the NFL so far. There were issues last season just with being an efficient tackler for IDP purposes. And a lot of that had to do with
the same thing about JOK though.
Yeah. But JOK, I think for him, it was more like related to playing time, whereas Simmons was playing an every down role, but he just wasn't producing. And he was producing, like his tackle efficiency was well below average for the position. And a part of that was them lining him up on the line of scrimmage and making him rush the passer, which he wasn't great at either. He's no Micah Parsons. So that takes away from some of his tackle opportunities. So
what do you mean he's not Micah Parsons?
I know, yeah. But it doesn't mean that he can't develop and get better. But the red flags for me is when a team's trying to move him around to different positions, and some of that coming out, coming into the NFL draft, the year he was drafted, what it was that he was this versatile kind of Swiss Army knife that they were going to be able to use all over the field. But he just hasn't shown that, I don't think, in the NFL thus far. He's been a liability in coverage, and again, that inefficiency as a tackler says more about what his skill set is on the field, being able to put himself in position to make plays, especially when he's out there all the time. So as far as like the first 24 linebackers coming off the board, even in Dynasty, I think I'm passing on Simmons.
I think the question here, when I think about the beat writers, what they're saying about him getting work with the safeties and all that, I think that might be more just trying to refine his coverage ability more than actually trying to line him up. It's that time of the year where the things we're seeing aren't really what we're seeing. They say, oh, the running back's lining up as a wide receiver. No, he's probably working out with the receivers and he's working on routes because there's concepts he needs to understand for his actual position. Isaiah Simmons, I hear everything that you're saying. Yeah, he was not particularly efficient as a tackler. And he showed a lot of flashes in fantasy performance. He gave us a few of those games because he had some turnovers and things like that. This is a team that has been mishandling this player. As a rookie, they wouldn't get him onto the field. They tried to use him as a safety. They tried to use him as a linebacker, put him out on the edge. They've done too many things with him in 2 years. They need to drop him at linebacker and let the kid develop. And that was kind of the promise we walked into this season with, was that they were going to take Collins and Simmons and let those guys be the two core backers, and then, rotate in whoever else they had to if they happen to go down into a base, formation, which, then Marcus Golden becomes that third backer as the stand-up edge, right? But, there's no reason not to love the athleticism and the profile. And if we're playing Dynasty, you're kind of playing the upsides a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. I've got Simmons higher, and I love Simmons simply because, hey, look, you can't beat that athletic profile, right? A guy who's 6'4", 220-something pounds, runs like a gazelle, Can he hit? He can tackle enough, but he needs to know where he has to be on the field. And my concern is we're going to see him go the way, like the floor is like a Devin Bush situation, where the guy never figures out where he's supposed to be on the field, and he's never in the right place to make a play. That's like the floor, but the ceiling could be immeasurable. If that light bulb goes on at the position, this is a guy that could be a perennial top 5 or 6 player at that position, and you have to love it.
That's the thing that I like about Simmons is his upside. Like Zayvon Collins' upside is fine. It's whatever. It's like a Quay Walker style upside where you're like, whatever. It's a big dude that can move around well, but he's not going to go out there and he's not going to be the next Bobby Wagner. Right. He's not going to be the next.
And it's not that I dislike Zayvon Collins. I think both of these guys have a lot of upside.
But I think Isaiah Simmons' ceiling is higher. I think, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah's ceiling's higher. I think Nakobe Dean's ceiling's higher. They're all guys that don't profile with the exact same body types as those bigger dudes. Like they profile as different types of linebackers who in the end are mostly like tackle guys. They're not coverage and interception guys. So Isaiah Simmons has the ability to do everything Zayvon does and more. And I guess that's there, but I think he also probably has a worse floor.
What happens when this team doesn't get off to the start they want? They fire Cliff Kingsbury and that whole staff goes away.
Yep. No, I get it.
All right. So final thoughts here. Is there anyone that you feel like the consensus is higher on or lower on than you, John, that we could just bring up to close out with?
People, I think one that I've seen a lot is Hassan Reddick, the edge rusher for the Eagles now. People love like he had back-to-back seasons of double-digit sacks. The problem for me where I've seen him, like some people have him as a top 10 edge defender for Dynasty. Some people have him in the top 15 even, I think is too high for me. I think going to the Eagles, he's going to be a part of a rotation over there. And a big part of his production the last couple of years has been purely based on his volume of snaps. He's been on the field a ton. So he, by default, he's kind of fell into a lot of that production. A lot of his advanced metrics tell me that he's not a great pass rusher and that he's going to see a pretty big decline. I think he's one of the bigger regression candidates that I think people are still pretty high on because a lot of people look at just previous years production and that's how they base their rankings. So Hassan Reddick is a big one for me. Yeah.
Hassan Reddick, he's another guy that got switched to linebacker on MFL. So he's fallen off the map for a lot of people. But he's an interesting guy. I think that, the consensus is higher on him than I typically would be. Jeff, do you agree?
Well, are you trying to show us your MFL roster here?
No, I'm trying to go over here and look at John's articles real quick before we go look at something else.
I'm actually right there, and I couldn't help but smile because I feel the same way about Reddick. I'm playing a ceiling on his on the DL projection for this year. I don't have it broken up by edge and interior defensive lineman. I had to go DL, linebacker, defensive back. Kind of helps miss a lot of the sleeper leagues that are out there. But I've got him right now at DL 16, and I feel like that's rich. Like, I don't love that. It's just kind of what the machine kicked out. Because to me, this is a guy that's a low-end DL2, maybe a high-end DL3. He's going to give you spike weeks where he gets you a couple of sacks, but he's going to be largely invisible a lot of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and going to his third team in 3 years now, right? So we don't know how they're going to utilize him. And, I mean, they got Derek Barnett, they got Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham's still there. Ryan Kerrigan, I think, is still there. So there's guys that they're going to be rotating. It's not going to be that 800 snaps that he's been playing the last couple seasons.
Yeah.
Yep.
John, so I'm looking here. It says 15 days ago, Jon Macri.
Yeah.
What's the next article coming out? What can people expect?
So next week, I'll get back to it. I was on holidays. That's why the bit of a break for me. I know.
No excuses here
slacking.
on the GR podcast.
Yeah.
Right?
In June? What is this?
It's ridiculous.
No one likes a short timer, John. All right.
No. Just because the kids are out of school doesn't mean you can change your schedule.
I know.
Just going on vacation and stuff.
I'm just lost. I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Makes two of us.
We're too deep in the off season.
That's it.
My compass is broken.
Yeah. So I'll try to post that. I think we'll be going weekly from here on out now. So next week, I think I'm going to focus on it's still going to be dynasty related, whatever I end up putting, whether it's breakout or bounce back guys. Either way, one of those two will be coming out in the next couple weeks. And then I think I'll do a bold predictions article, something like that, and then get into kind of the redraft stuff as well, tiers and rankings and all the fun redraft stuff that people love as well. So we'll be posting something weekly on pff.com.
All right. Well, I think
nice.
that people should all go follow your stuff, and we'll circle back to that. But I did just see that on your rankings that you put out a month ago, you had Nick Bosa and Myles Garrett as the number 1 and 2 IDP players. Just want to let you know, in the startup draft, I got them in the 4th round back.
That's beautiful. That's really nice.
Makes me super happy. Let's see. Hold on. So what do you think I should do here? We'll just edit this out of the show real quick, and then we'll do one thing, or we'll keep it in. We'll see.
This is why we can't trust you to do anything, Ronnie.
Nope, I'm in charge. Welcome
off
to the Ronnie
rails.
Show. It's been a great week. Welcome back to the Ronnie podcast. So on my team here, I've got this guy. This guy was like, "Hey, I'm out of here." And so now I got these 3, and I'm not hating this. I really would love if Harrison Smith got traded to play for Kareem Willis over here, and then Cameron Bynum started playing free safety, and I could get some value out of him this year. Because that was an auto draft pick, which is annoying. But anyway, pretty good team. What do you think they're just?
It's a good team. We definitely got to find somebody else now at safety. Maybe take a shot at Nick Cross if he's still available. Or
there we go. There's Javonte.
All right, check it out. All right, so We got this little sneak peek here. Jeff has been working on a tool that talks about running back workload, their projected cliffs, when to sell, when to keep, and there's something that utilizes a little bit different of a data set than you'll typically see out there, John, for running back projections. And if I can peel back a little bit, Jeff, I have seen Jeff's master database, and in it has like projected pie charts and like graphs for each player, for every player in the NFL. And it's like, all right, so here's the 5-year analysis of
tracking their whole career. I'm working on a career tracker for everybody.
So he's made it in a more digestible format here in these infographics. Jeff, take it away. Tell people what they're looking at.
So, well, if you take me back up to the top there, you're doing a little scroll on me here. So right at the top, we're talking about, hey, what are they expected to get in terms of touch share in the offense, right? So like in this example, Javonte Williams is expected to see the ball, 24.2% of all of the Broncos touches. That's a combination of his carries and his receptions. It's 9th in the NFL. So based on what we're looking at in terms of projected plays run, his carries, and his receptions, 24% of the time this guy should be touching the rock. So as you scroll down, we start to break that down a little further into 3 categories. Hey, how many touches is he going to get, right? We want to know about his total touches. We want to know about the percentage of team carries, yards, how many in total, how many yards per touch. Shows a little bit of inefficiency there. We only have 1 year of data to work with. Touchdown rate, it's a little low for scoring. Fantasy points per touch, anything you might need to make a decision there. Keep coming down a little bit. Mm-hmm. We've got workload impact. Now, this is the thing that I love. I've been tracking this for a few years now. Everybody talks about the 30-year-old cliff. It's not 30 years old. There's really a danger zone in the series of thresholds that running backs can hit. The first is 1,600 weighted touches. So basically we have carries and then we have receptions that are watered down 25%. So basically a reception counts as 0.75 touches instead of 1 touch. We basically throw that into a short little metric there in the spreadsheet. It kicks out a new number for how many weighted touches. 235 here for our guy Javonte. We're looking at 1,600 to 1,800 puts him in the danger zone of falling off that cliff. He's at 235. This guy is super robust. No injuries. Give you a quick little injury breakdown if we had injuries there.
2027, it looks like.
Keep scrolling down. Keep coming down.
Which is nuts.
We got some handcuffs here. I actually got him down for 2028 now. Career arc, he only has 1 year in, right? 2028 is assuming they keep Melvin Gordon and he gets, maybe 100 fewer touches total than Javonte this year. And Denver brings in another back to help complement him. This is a coaching staff, assuming they stick around, likes to run 2 backs. I don't see a reason why he can't be an RB1, but he's probably going to continue to have somebody kind of relieving him with some consistency. So getting a solid 6 years out of this guy is a big time win. Should put him in that danger zone of that, 16 to 1,800, weighted touches. Then you'll want to get out as quick as you can. Kind of gives you a full breakdown of who this guy is as a player in kind of a prettied up little picture here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, John?
I love it. That's really cool. I love the workload impact. I love like the projection of when to sell and stuff like that. That's kind of nice and very, very clean, nice graphic, easy to digest, easy to read and understand, and very good information.
Nice.
Thanks, buddy.
Awesome.
All right, let's do like 2 more and then we can close this thing out. Who do you want, Jeff?
I just think it was funny that you went to Mel Gordon next because, see that workload impact shoots up to 1,690. Oh, Zeke, this is a great one. I love this one.
All right.
So, whoa, little zoomed in there. So here's the deal. Ezekiel Elliott has gotten a lot of kind of conflicting reports, right? People are talking about how healthy he is now. He's running real fast, running real hard. He looks amazing and this, that, and the other. The fact is this guy's got a lot of work on his body. I don't want to do the full breakdown like we just did on Javonte, but if you scroll down to the middle to the workload for me, that would be great. 1,866 is his weighted workload impact. Now, this guy right here is well beyond that 1,600 touch threshold. And this number, when I've seen it shoot into that range, and in this case over that range, it almost consistently every single time is locked in an injury or a dramatic drop off in fantasy production. There's also a secondary metric that I look for, and it's a 725 weighted touches over a 33-game period. And that almost every single time locks in an injury. Locked it in on Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry the last couple of years. Look, over 1,800 on that workload score. This guy is real close to dust. He might give you a few strong games, but we're starting to look at lower body injuries piling up, a lot of workload, and Tony Pollard is more efficient in almost every single way. We've got the Pollard workload chart probably right behind this one. I'm out on Zeke. I'm selling. If somebody else is hyped on what we're hearing in terms of the postseason, preseason, offseason hype, let them have them. Sell them for what you can get. Load up on Pollard because this guy's going to see a lot of run this year.
Yep. I love it. So Zeke, for example, I think that it's not out of the realm of possibility that Zeke ends up as a top 12 running back this season, right? But beyond this season, even if that did happen, the cliff is coming for Zeke. And if you're in Dynasty, which was the point of this show overall,
he's got heels on the cliff right now.
Just
toes are hanging
put him
over.
in that catapult and launch, man, and just see who's willing to catch. Because, maybe you wait and you do it during the season. Like if he gets 2 back-to-back 26-point games, be like, who wants to deal? And you might be able to go get a Kenneth Walker or something like that if you're willing to throw in an extra piece. If it's a contender or someone who's thinking hey, I want some guaranteed production. Zeke looks like he got it. This could put me into playoff contention. And even if you're a contender, I would make that deal in a league I'm in. If I had Zeke, I'd sell him for someone younger right now for sure.
There you go.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Tony Pollard. The rest of these are still in progress. I got to load up the Lions stuff, the Colts stuff, Titans. So you can see.
Here's a guy that it did nail last year, right? So this is obviously not loaded up and
that's not his numbers, Yes.
But this guy we nailed last year with just this little model in the back, and I was listening to Jeff tell me about it, and it was he's like, Derrick Henry's going to get hurt this year. It's too much. It's too much. Derrick Henry.
The human body can only take so much. Yeah. And I'm not trying to predict injuries. I want to be clear to anybody who's listening. I'm not trying to come out here and predict injuries and do all that because that's impossible to predict. All we're trying to do is identify risk factors that could position you to fail for fantasy. That's what I'm worried about. And that failure could be an injury. That failure could be just guys get tired out and they just don't have the same efficiency. Anything that could impede your ability to score fantasy points now is what we're trying to figure out. And so these guys are presenting too many risk factors. Might be time to get out.
So we got to get that figured out for every position eventually, John, and then we're going to sell it to you guys over at PFF, and it'll be nice joining the team.
Sounds good. I'm all for it. I love it.
It's been great having you on, man. So we should do this again closer to the season when we can do more of a redraft hybrid mix, and we can pull up the actual projection model and say hey, this is where he's ADP going. This is where this and that. This is where you guys have him at PFF. This is where the actual thing that we trust the most with our numbers is saying, he'll be. And we can go bang through it quicker next time and try and spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes on each player and just shotgun our way through. But it was nice talking to you. You're good to hang with and talk football with. We like to throw jabs in and kind of be casual on this show, and you've taken it like a champ. So appreciate that.
I appreciate you guys having me on, and it was a lot of fun. So I'd be happy to do it again. And thank you for having me.
Yeah,
thanks for being here. The honor's ours, man. We were pretty pumped about this. I know I was pretty excited when Ronnie said you were coming on. So,
so it's Nathan Yonke.
Yonke, yeah, Nathan
Yonke. All right, so what we should do is
guys.
I would love to, if we can wrangle him on too and get both of you guys at the same time, I would love to then put you guys in a corner and put us in a corner and have us debate players like the PFF team and see if you guys
you and Nate against John and I. We'll do a little mixed tag team.
Okay, we could also do that. I'm sure I could. I'll just side with Nate on everything, and then at the end I'll be like, whatever.
Yeah, Nate's a really nice guy. He does a lot of our tech stuff too. But yeah, if you were to reach out to him, I'm sure he'd be open to do it.
Well, it'd be good because I think that I'm well versed on IDP and offense. Jeff is well versed on both and knows more about both and does a lot more work on both. You obviously are a big time IDP guy, but you can't be a big time IDP guy without understanding offense first. So obviously you do offensive dynasty and so on. And then I know that Nate is mostly, it sounds like offense, but he does plenty of IDP.
Yeah, he does a little bit of the IDP stuff.
Yeah. So we could have a little verbal wrestling match on some players. That'll be great.
Sounds good.
All right, you heard it here first. It's going to be Celebrity Deathmatch Fantasy Football Edition on the Chop.
Love it.
But yeah, John, it's been great having you on. We'll see about Jaquan Brisker and some of these other guys like Nakobe Dean, who, shout out to both of you guys. We love you, and we're sorry that John and everyone else has been so mean when they're doing the rankings and talking about y'all. So.
Really sorry.
So Nakobe Dean shows up at your door. What'd you say? I said I loved you. I loved you so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and just play the outro again real quick, and we'll be done. Anything else, John? Anything you want people? You want to plug anything at all?
I mean, you can check out my stuff on pff.com. I do a bi-weekly podcast as well. It's in the IDP show feed. It's the Big Nickel IDP podcast. And I'm on the Twitter at PFF_Macri. That's it.
Nice. Well, you can find us as well at Gridiron Rating with no S on Twitter. Jeff is at NFL_DiMatteo. I'm at Ronnie A. Evans, and I'm also on Reddit at Mr_Football. I'm the only one that doesn't have kids, so of the three of us, if you want someone to really give you undivided attention, hit me up. You can try them too, but I would recommend me over them. That's all I got.
You never answer your phone. You're never even near it. How do you even get your alerts?
That's an inside joke. I loathe Twitter. I'm not on Twitter a lot.
It's not a great place. I don't.
But if you hit me up on Reddit, I'll
broadcast.
I'm on Reddit all the time. You got my.
I will hit end broadcast if you don't get that outro going.
They have no idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from.